Hello and welcome to another episode of a Brothers Creed podcast where we talk about motivation, experiences, and exploring the world around us. We're the Thomas Brothers, and I'm Jared.
And I'm Ethan. And today we have an awesome special guest with us today, Jesse Esselman. He is a longtime listener of the podcast from the very beginning, a longtime friend, and he's actually gotten into some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu here over the past year or so. So we had lots of questions. We were talking about it offline, and we were just like, "Hey, let's get you on the podcast. Let's talk about this." It seems like it just keeps growing and growing, and a lot of the podcasts and things that Jared and I listen to are like they do it as well. So we got tons of questions.
Yes. So thanks for joining us, Jesse.
Awesome. Excited to be here.
All right, let's jump in.
All right, let's do it.
You can't climb the ladder of success with your hands in the pocket.
We will not go quietly into the night.
They tell me you're a man with true grit.
I am the one who knocks. Don't ever tell me what I can't do, ever!
That's how winning is done.
All right, well, let's go ahead and talk about, I think, Jesse, first of all, thank you for joining us today. It's always a pleasure to have you on. Jesse is one of our loyalist members, and we love that he supports us, so we're like, man, this guy's so interesting anyway, we got to have him on. So thank you for your patronage as well. But one thing I wanted to understand, so it seems like everywhere I look these days, especially within the guy sphere, you know, with anything that's manly or you know, these manly podcasts and shows and Instagram pages, it's all about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So help me understand what's all the hype about. What attracted you to the sport?
So I think initially what attracted, I grew up, I wrestled all through high school and middle school. And so, and loved it, loved everything about wrestling. And so I had been exposed already to kind of combat sports and grappling / ground sports. And so I was already exposed to wrestling, and a lot of the wrestlers, college wrestlers, end up going into MMA fighting or the UFC, and they kind of adapt their wrestling and pick up jiu-jitsu along the way, because jiu-jitsu wrestling is a big part of fighting in the MMA and UFC. And so I kind of knew the sport was always out there. Just because I saw these wrestlers start practicing jiu-jitsu. And my wife gifted me an opportunity for my birthday one time to go to a gym, a jiu-jitsu gym, to try it out. And, you know, going in, I was like, oh, I might do this. Let's see how much it cost. And after I took my first class, I was like, I don't care how much it costs. I'm signing up.
Little did she know. You're just like...
And
how long ago was that?
So I actually signed up right before COVID hit. And so I signed my membership, and then the next week they closed. Oh, and so I couldn't participate for 6 months or so. And then it opened back up in September. And so I've been going basically 5 times a week since then. So
5 times a week? What time do you go?
So I typically go during my lunch hour.
Benefits of working from home.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
I go during the lunch hour, and then I'll hit a class maybe one time during the week at night, one of the later classes, and then Saturday I'll go then. So
cool. So how is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu different than like wrestling?
Yeah. So wrestling, the purpose is put your opponent's shoulders on the mat, right, to pin them. In Jiu-Jitsu, the purpose is to submit them through either a choke or an arm lock or a leg lock or something that hurts, right? Where if you don't stop it, their arm will break, their shoulder will break, they'll hyperextend their...
Pass out or tap out.
Exactly, yeah. Submit them where they have to tap out, as Ethan said.
They have to give up.
Yeah.
As opposed to wrestling where it's just like get your shoulders on the ground.
Yeah, well, give up. If you don't tap, you are going to go to sleep. You will be unconscious.
Or break your arm or something else.
Or break your arm, right? And so that's the main difference of pinning versus a submission of some sort.
So I know in wrestling they have like a kind of a point system. Is that similar with jiu-jitsu?
Yeah. So they have points in jiu-jitsu just like wrestling. So you have takedowns, you have guard passes, you have bat takes, mounts. But then regardless of points, whoever gets a submission wins, right? Just like in wrestling, you could be losing 10-0. If you pin them, you win. Same in jiu-jitsu, you could be losing, but if you get that submission and they tap, you win.
Do you see more submissions or do you see more point victories?
So the lower level guys, like I'm just a white belt. I'm still getting into the sport. So the lower level guys, you tend to see more submissions. But these, the black belts that compete at world championships, like you will see submissions, but it's a lot more likely that they'll win like 2-0, or off an advantage, which is another scoring system within the sport itself. I'm still learning the scoring myself.
Interesting.
But yeah, at the high level, just like in wrestling, they're really high level guys. Their technique is just so basically perfect. Where you see a lot less pins in college wrestling, and almost no pins in international wrestling. Same thing with jiu-jitsu. As the higher level guy, as you get to the higher level guys, there's just not as many submissions. So
interesting.
No, it's very interesting. So you said you went to your first class and you were just like fell in love, right?
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh man, this is so cool. Probably because it threw you back to your wrestling days, and you were like, oh, this is like, I have a passion for this. And I guess from what I've seen of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, typically you just kind of stand out. You start out in almost like a hunkered down position. Somebody's you're grabbing each other's gi, or you're almost in like you're basically on the ground already. But there's very little standing fighting. Is that right?
No. And in a competition, you actually start standing.
Okay.
In the room, like at the gym, we'll start in all kinds of different positions to practice them.
Okay.
A lot of times we'll start on our knees, or sitting down on our butts, and go from there. But in a competition, you do start standing. Both guys start standing.
And then you try to throw the other person, or?
So you can do one of two things. You can either go for a takedown, or you can do what's called pulling guard, which basically means you basically sit down to your butt and pull into a guard position. You don't actually give up any points by doing that. You're just changing the form of grappling.
Yeah.
And so there's two ways you can go about it, right? You can get the takedown through a throw or through, a leg attack or something. Or if you feel more comfortable playing guard, which guard is, if you pull guard, you sit to your butt and kind of sit to your back and try to get them in a closed guard position. So you can do either of those options in a competition.
So I know you said your wife gifted you kind of this experience to start out with. I mean, obviously you had suggested it to her probably, or you had been talking about it and she caught on to that. Where did you hear about it before? Was it, I don't remember hearing really anything about jiu-jitsu in like high school and stuff like that. I mean, when did you first hear about it? And then did you have people that you like researched or looked at or followed that do it, kind of motivate you to get into it?
Yeah, it was kind of one of those things of, you always have those things, oh, I'd like to do this one day, and maybe you never get around to it. Oh, I'd like to do this, or this kind of would be fun, kind of. And I think, my first exposure was kind of like I was saying, all the wrestlers that I'd followed kind of started doing jiu-jitsu and using it in their fights. And that was really my limited knowledge of it. And I was like, martial arts is cool. You hear about all the other martial arts that are out there. And I always thought, oh, it'd be cool to kind of get into a martial art, whether it be jiu-jitsu or karate or whatever it is. But I knew jiu-jitsu was grappling. It was a ground and pound type sport, very similar to wrestling. So I kind of gravitated toward jiu-jitsu just because of that wrestling background. And so just in passing to my wife, I think it would be kind of fun to do this. I wonder if I should go try it out. But it never really materialized. And then finally she said, all right, you're going to go do this, and gave it to me for my birthday. And it was just a free trial, right?
Yeah.
She wasn't committing to signing up for, but
she let you do the committing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
But like I said, once I went, I was just like, yeah, this is going to be for me.
One of the things I've heard about the pros of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is, one, you're in a competitive environment, which a lot of guys don't get the opportunities to be in competitive environments very often. Two, it's low impact. You're not really like punching each other or really kicking each other. It's a good exercise, but it's not like, I mean, you're like kicking each other in the face or anything like that. So you can do it 5 times a week, you know?
Right.
Is there any other advantages or like, I mean, those were just the two that I kind of heard of. Then I was like, oh, that is true. You know, that made me think about maybe trying it myself.
Yeah. So like you said, so like with striking, you know, boxing or Muay Thai, you know, you can only spar so many times a week, right? And even when you do spar, you can't go 100% because you can only take so many blows to your head in your entire life, right? But in jiu-jitsu, I spar every time I go, and I go 100% every single time. And when I, you know, do a submission on someone or they do it on me, like it's 100%, right? If I don't tap, I'm going to pass out. Like if they don't tap, they will pass out from this choke. And so it's 100% real, full, live every single time. And so I enjoy that aspect of every single time I get to go in the gym, I get to do the sport. Like I get to do the real thing. And so I enjoy that part of it, you know, and you're going 100% every time you spar. And so it is quite a cardio workout. And so I'm not much of a runner, but I understand that working your cardiovascular system is an important part of staying healthy.
Oh yeah.
And so I kind of use jiu-jitsu as a good way of like, I don't want to go on a 5-mile run, but I need to exercise my cardiovascular system. And so I find this is a good excuse of like, I'm going to go get a workout in and really get my heart rate up, get my blood flowing and exercise my
It's
cardio.
like, I remember whenever we were little, Jared and I, we had a trampoline, and we would jump on the trampoline for hours. And it would be, I mean, we'd be wrestling and jump on the trampoline and everything for just hours at a time. Right now, if I go on a trampoline, I jump for about 3 minutes and then I'd be like, I'm done. Like,
That's because the trampoline would break.
well, yeah, but you know, it's just like, it's just that kind of that cardiovascular system is just like, you're not used to just that constant movement of.
And when you're having fun doing something, you don't even notice it. Like I can go out and play a game of soccer or frisbee or something and not even notice it. But then if I'm, you know, just running, I'm like, this is miserable every single step.
Yeah.
So what are some of the rules in jiu-jitsu? Like what can't you do when you're grappling?
Yeah, so I'm still learning a little bit of like the more technical rules myself. So they have limits on what submissions you could go for based off your belt. But there are some, like the knee is typically, they really try to protect the knee. Because basically any position you can think of, like you can get to that position in jiu-jitsu because you could be inverted in so many different ways. And so they just there's different things that you can't maneuver the knee. So
you want to break tear someone's ACL,
right? To cause injury there. So the term that I hear used is like raking the knee, and it's raking the knee in such a way where it kind of goes against the movement of the joint, which obviously can cause it to injure.
I know that there's obviously probably, I mean, no like eye gouging,
right, yeah,
like sucker punches and stuff like that. Like
you can't punch at all though, right?
No punching. Yeah.
I know that, and maybe in wrestling, like I don't know, like a rear naked choke in wrestling where you just get somebody, like just choke somebody is probably out. But is that good? I mean, is that fine?
That's good jiu-jitsu technique right there. Yeah. No, right, like you said, in wrestling, you can't choke somebody or put them in a position that could hurt their arm. But in jiu-jitsu, that's the point, right? And if I get you in a position where I'm choking you, like you tap, right, to end the match.
Have you ever seen anybody? Have you ever passed out after getting choked out?
No, I haven't. Not yet.
You've always tapped early. You're like, oh.
I've always tapped in time. Like I'll try to fight it as long as I can, but sometimes it goes quick, right? If when I'm going with a brown belt or a black belt or even a purple belt, and they get me in a good like blood choke, I mean, it gets tight quick.
That tunnel vision goes through.
It gets tight very quickly, and if you don't tap, like you're going to sleep. So yeah, and it's all in good fun, right?
Yeah.
Like
they're not trying to hurt you,
right? They're not trying to hurt you, and if you get tapped, no big deal. shake hands, let's go again. Like,
Yeah.
it's all in good fun. And so there's really no reason not to tap, right? There's no reason not to tap. They don't want to hurt
a
you.
pride thing.
Exactly. Jiu-jitsu is a great way to get humbled anyways, right? Like, I'm a white belt, so I'm just learning. Like, I went against one of my black belt professors one time, and he's 135 pounds, and he just...
And you're a big guy. You're like 6'2"
I'm
plus,
like
and you're
210. Yeah, 6'1", 6'2", and he just worked me. Like, he didn't even break a sweat. And so, you're going to get submitted a lot, regardless of...
That's how you learn. You learn by getting submitted.
And that's really at all levels. Through the time, even as you progress in your belt, you're going to get submitted over and over and over and over and over again. And that's how you learn. And, and that's part of the sport. And that's what makes it fun, to submit and get submit. And it's all good. And so you just tap and you move on to the next round.
Have you ever been hurt? Obviously not broken, but maybe broken bones or whatever else, but like bumps and bruises. What hurts after you?
Just nicks and dings. Like, I think I dislocated my pinky toe one time.
Never even heard of that before.
Yeah, it hurt pretty bad, but I just instinctively like grabbed it and popped it back in, and it hurt, but it was fine. It wasn't broken or anything. But nicks, I get bruises all the time on my triceps. I got elbow right here in right above my eye a couple weeks ago. Had a little bruise. So you get nicks and dings, but nothing serious.
Have you ever had to drain your ear for
No.
getting smashed?
No.
One of my buddies, he does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he once got hit in the ear or something because his ear was all swollen, like the cauliflower ear. Or getting smashed on something, and he had to drain it out with the syringe and everything. I'm like, oh gosh.
Yeah, I've never had that. Even through my time wrestling, I've never really, I don't know if it's genetics, I've never really had a problem with, trauma to my ear. Some of the guys at the gym do get it. They just ice it, and typically it heals just fine. So.
That's crazy. Yeah, it's just weird how some people do get it and other people don't. But do you ever see people wear like headgear, like protective?
Yeah, some guys do. They'll wear headgear when we start to like roll live, and it's fine. It's typically a softer headgear, just enough to prevent the trauma to the ear. But most don't. But there's a few that decide to wear it, and it's no big deal.
So, what's the typical attire of jiu-jitsu?
So there's two different attires, I guess, or styles. Is gi, which is, pretty standard across martial arts. You have your gi, and then there's a style where there's no gi. And in the gi, you can grab the gi, you can use the gi to choke them, you can wrap the gi around their arm, you can grab their pants, the gi is part of them.
Untie their belt and wrap it around their neck.
Choke them out like Rambo or something.
But anything goes as far as the gi goes.
Anything goes as far as the gi and the belt. You can grab the belt too. I don't think you can take it off of them and wrap it around.
What about the non-gi? Is this like a naked thing, or like what? Like no shirt?
No,
like
you just wear like
boxer shorts or something.
Yeah, board shorts type thing.
You wear a shirt
and a rash guard.
Oh, okay.
Just a tight fitting shirt.
Huh. But you can't pull on.
You can't pull on the clothing, right? It's just arms, legs, things like that. So it's no gi is similar to wrestling where you can't like pull on the singlet, right? It's just body parts. But in gi you can use anything.
Does your gym do both?
My gym does both. Yeah. We do more gi than no gi. But yeah, both is offered. You can't like stick your fingers inside the sleeves of like the opponent, just because there's risk to injury to the fingers, right? If they try to yank on it, fingers get caught up. Yeah. So there's little things like that, like you can't stick your fingers inside their pant leg, but you can grab
the leg.
You can grab all around it and everything else. So
interesting.
You twist it up and hold it.
So as far as competition goes, I know that you've competed in a couple different, what are they called, tournaments?
Tournaments, yeah.
Yeah. Have you done both gi and non-gi?
Yeah.
And how do those tournaments go for you?
Yeah, so I've done two different tournaments. The first tournament was just gi, And this was a typical like bracket tournament where you win, you advance, and then you go against the guy who won on the opposite side of the bracket.
Is it done by like weight class or how is
Yep.
it?
Belts or
Belts, weight class, and age.
oh
Yeah. So there's a lot of different tiers there. So belts in jiu-jitsu, the belts are white belt, blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, black belt. So there's 5 belts there. In the youth division, there's a whole lot of belts, but for the adult division, it's white, blue, purple, brown, black. So it goes by belt, then it goes by weight. So you have weight classes, right? 210, 185, and then age. And so in the IBJJF tournaments, it's bracketed off by 5-year groups. If you're 40, you can compete in the 40 to 45 age bracket, or you can compete in any of the ones. You just have to be that age requirement to compete in any bracket. So, and this
so
one,
what bracket did you compete in? Like 30?
so I just
35?
competed in the adult bracket, which is you can be any age. You can be an 18-year-old. I could technically do what's called Master 1, which is 30 to 35 because I'm 31. But there were more guys, right? Because I'm going to participate in my sport. There were more people in the adult bracket, so I just said I'll just do that one because I want to do this sport.
Oh yeah.
And so I did win both of my matches for that tournament by points. And then I did another tournament a few weeks later, and I did gi and no gi in that tournament. And that was a round robin style. So 5 guys went in. We all competed against each other. And, you got your medals based on your record. And so in gi, I won gi for that tournament as well. And then I got silver in the no gi.
So in the first tournament, you said you only had 2 matches?
2 matches. In jiu-jitsu, they call them fights.
Fights.
Yeah, so I had 2 fights in the first one, and then the next one, between gi and no gi, I had 7.
Oh wow!
In one day. So that was exhausting. I was dead after the end of the day, but it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, and I got to kind of like what you said. I got to compete. I got to challenge myself, which I really hadn't been able to do since high school.
Yeah,
I didn't really get to go out and compete. You play pickup basketball or whatever. But it's a little bit different when like you're going out
and run one-on-one.
exactly. Yeah. So,
how long do matches typically go for?
So again, it depends on the belt, but for white belts, is 5 minutes. And typically, it depends on the tournament.
Is it rounds or is it just like
it's just
one 5-minute round?
1 5-minute go, start to end.
Unless he taps out first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Unless you get a submission, and then it stops right when the submission happens. In the black belt world championships, I think the matches are 10 minutes long. And so as you get higher belts, the matches get a little bit longer, but
That sounds exhausting.
yeah, 5 minutes is exhausting.
So you did like the all adults. You did all adults bracket in the what weight range?
I did 210.
Is it every 10 pounds or what are the ranges?
It depends on the tournament, but it's typically about every 20 pounds.
Okay. And then and they were all white belts.
They were all white belts.
Okay.
Yeah, they were just like me, all white belts. So everybody that I went up against was a year and a half or less probably into jiu-jitsu.
Now, did you try to lose weight for this, or were you just like, I'm just going?
So the first one I just went. And the first one I did, the 200 and 225, those guys were heavy. Those guys were so heavy. I didn't cut any weight, because I was weighing about 220. And they were just heavy. And I was like, golly, this is harder than in the gym. And then the next one, I gained a little bit of weight with COVID. And so I was like, well, this is a good reason to try to lose a little bit of weight. So I cut a little bit of weight for the second one and got down to 210 for that one.
Did they actually do like weigh-ins and stuff when you get there? Or?
Yeah. They're not as like the two companies that I competed in, they weren't as strict with it.
Like if you were 211, then
they would just like, go ahead. Now in the IBJJF is like the main organization. I haven't competed in one of their tournaments yet. I'm sure they're very strict. Like if you're 0.1 over, you're out. You can't compete, right? But these other ones that have like traveling tournaments, they're a little bit smaller groups. They're a little bit more lenient with the weight.
Hey guys, I just wanted to take a quick break and say thank you for listening to this episode and invite you to support us on Patreon. As a loyal supporter, you will get exclusive access to 2 additional episodes per month, which are not released to the public. You can find the link to our Patreon page in the episode description. Let's get back to the show. You had mentioned something earlier I kind of want to go back to. So you had mentioned that, we were talking a little bit about finding something that you just really enjoy and that you're into and that just kind of brings you that, I don't know, motivation or whatever it may be. And you just said you kind of use it as motivation to lose weight. And how has it been having something? I think there's a lot of guys out there that they're just living life, and it's almost like I'm just living day to day and I'm going to work and I'm doing whatever. How has it been for you in finding something that really, not that gives you purpose in life, but that like you just really enjoy doing? How has that been for you?
Yeah, it's been really nice to have like a legitimate hobby, because like you said, I get so caught up in work and family with my kids, like trying to make sure everything's, squared away with all that.
Kind of lose yourself a little bit.
You kind of lose yourself a little bit. And it's been really good to like have a hobby that I stick to, that I love, that I look forward to going, to jiu-jitsu every day. A lot of people, when they start jiu-jitsu, they get like the jiu-jitsu bug. You almost get addicted and you're like, I want to go twice a day, every single day.
Your wife's like, no, one time is fine.
Exactly, yeah. I can't do that. I typically don't go twice in one day. Every so often on a Friday, I'll go twice in one day, but I'm a one time a day kind of guy. So it's been, a lot of fun to like have a hobby, because at the end of the day, I mean, it's just a hobby that I really, really enjoy. I mean, even the tournaments, like, it doesn't matter if I win or lose this tournament. It's for fun, right? At the end of the day, it's for fun. It's a hobby that I really like. It's super fun. It's got great health benefits. It's a practical skill for self-defense. And so it's nice. And I feel like I can do this for a long, long, long time. There's gyms. If you look up on your phone right now, wherever you're at, you could probably find a gym within 15 minutes of your house, most likely. Because like we said, the sport's growing quite a bit. And so I feel like I can do this sport for a long time. I may not compete forever as I get older, but like I have every intention at this point to, they say the average person gets their black belt in about 10 years. 5 years would be absurdly quick, but 10 years. And so I feel like, in 10 years, I want to still be competing and, or practicing this sport, and I hope to get my black belt and keep going after that for it to just be this hobby that I can hopefully, do for a long time.
Or teach your kids.
Exactly.
That's
yeah.
Cool
So
too. Are there kids that do it as well?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of the tournaments, there was like 4 and 5 year olds out there, scrapping, and it was fun to watch them. And that's the other thing. Like, I go to these tournaments and my son's only 3 years old right now, but as he gets older, I kind of want to see him, dad is putting in time and effort to like perfect his craft in jiu-jitsu. Like, I'm working at something, I'm trying to be better at something. And so just trying to set an example for him even early on. Like, if you want to be good at something, you got to practice, right? World champions practice for a long, long, long time. And so that's another reason why I want to kind of do jiu-jitsu for as long as my body will allow me to, is just, for all the things that I've said, but also so my son can see, okay, dad works hard too, and he can kind of reflect that in whatever sport that he chooses to participate in.
I like the aspect of kind of what you're saying is that it's not only it's a hobby, but it's a functional hobby. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by functional hobby?
Well, it's a practical skill to have. Like, it is self-defense, right?
Has that given you more confidence? Not that you're like you'd put yourself in bad situations, but
For sure, you know. I mean, someone who's been practicing jiu-jitsu for 6 to 9 months, you know, they're still very new in the jiu-jitsu world, but versus the regular person that has no grappling experience, they're gonna handle them pretty good. Like, they're gonna basically be able to control them for the most part. As long as there's not a huge like strength and size difference, they'll be able to control them for the most part. And so, you know, I had my wrestling experience, and so, you know, I still kind of had that, but to have jiu-jitsu on top of that, to feel comfortable in a lot of like positions, to feel comfortable being on bottom and know what to do in those positions, it does give me a little bit of comfort to know, right? Heaven forbid if a confrontation were to happen, that I could at least
submit somebody.
Detain
somebody.
somebody and then get away from the situation, or you know, submit somebody and ultimately like put them to sleep and then walk away,
Or hold them until the cops got there.
Right.
Yeah. That's cool. I think I heard a quote once that said that you can't say that you're a peaceful person if you're incapable of doing harm, because you have to be capable of doing harm to choose to be peaceful. If you can't do harm to anybody, then how are you peaceful? That's just what you are. You just can't. And so
You have to be able to choose peace.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, I was watching this one video. There's this guy, and basically he was in like a department store, and somebody came up to him. Some guy was like irate and came up to him, and I don't know if they had a confrontation or whatever, but one guy just started just wailing on the other guy, and he kind of fell down, the guy that got hit, and he just kind of like curled up in a ball, and the other guy was just like kicking him and beating on him and stuff. And then the guy who was kind of doing like a narrator of the video does jiu-jitsu, and he kind of shared a couple techniques of like, you know, using your feet to create distance and things that this guy could have done to not so much like control the situation, but just like defend himself and give himself a couple extra seconds of like separation. And I always kind of thought that was really cool, that it kind of teaches maybe a little bit of that separation and using your legs potentially, or tactic to stand up or something, just so that you can run away, but just get that separation in that type of situation. And I'm sure somebody who's been doing it for 6 or 9 months definitely would be able to understand that.
Yeah. So, I mean, because at the end of the day, like, you don't want to be in a fight. And so if you know just enough jiu-jitsu to like basically get away, I mean, that's the ultimate goal, right? Is to get out of the confrontation without injury. The other thing, I was talking about earlier, how jiu-jitsu, you go 100%, like you do the real thing. And that's another aspect I really like about it, because when you're in a confrontation, if somebody were to attack you, like, you have to be able to snap in and get ready to go instantly. Like, you can't go into like a shocked phase. And so when you're competing every single day, you're used to someone coming at you 100%. Like, when we're scrapping, the guy's coming at me with all his might. Like, he's coming to submit me, or he's coming to put me in an armbar. And so I'm used to going 100%. And so I feel like in a situation where somebody were to charge me, I'd be that much more reactive and ready to like, all right, I have to be ready to defend myself and be 100% go time, you know?
Yeah, you're like training yourself to be in a situation where you can respond to someone's 100% energy.
Right, exactly.
Or aggression towards you, I guess.
Yeah.
Very cool. One of the things I was wondering about is, and you mentioned this at the beginning, I don't care how much this costs, let's just do it. I'm wondering, what is the outlay, or what is like the monthly cost that one would expect getting into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Yeah, so I mean, all the classes are, you have a professor, is what we refer to our coaches, is, you know, you have a professor that's teaching in person. So it's not like an open gym where you just go in, you lift weights, and no one's there to monitor, right? And so of all the gyms that I've looked at, because I've kind of looked at different gyms in the Charlotte area, and typically anywhere from about $150 to $180 a month to go unlimited amount of times. So typically they'll have a phase thing where it's like, if you come 2 times a week, you pay $120, and then unlimited, you can pay $165, $160, $165. And so
And then you have like maybe like a gi purchase or something like that on top of that. Or,
Yeah. So you can buy your gi from anywhere. They sell them on Amazon for as cheap as $60, $70. Some of the nicer ones are $150 to $200. But yeah, you have to have a gi. So that's typically how much it'll run you.
Cool. That's good to know.
And they offer the 2 times a class. I actually initially signed up for the twice a week class, and then after a couple of months, I was like, yeah, I want to start coming more often. So I upgraded.
So how do you is it called wrestling or grappling, or what do you say?
Grappling or
Like
I've
whenever
heard
you go to the
rolling or
gym, you say, I'm
something.
going to the gym to roll, or is like, how do you say
train.
Train.
Most
Okay.
people will say I'm going to the gym to train.
So, like, is it a full hour at your lunch? I mean, are you like there? Because do you shower after and then go back to work?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So the class is a full hour. Luckily, I live really close to the gym, and so I hop in the car. I just take a little bit longer lunch, right?
Yeah.
Work a little bit later, start earlier in the morning. I just hop in the gym, go get my class in, drive home, shower, eat lunch at the work desk. So
Yeah, that's nice. So, what are you gonna do when you have to go back to work?
I'll just adjust my schedule. I mean, if I have to get back into the office, I'll just hit more of the nighttime classes, and just work through it.
That's awesome. So yours, where part of town? You're in Arboretum area, right?
Yeah.
So is there one in the Arboretum?
Yeah. So, interestingly enough, there's one. The shopping center is called the Galleria. It's in Matthews, just on the edge of Charlotte. And so, my professor, the owner of the gym, his name's Lucas Lepre, and he's basically, his gym's 2 miles from my house, and it's just funny that basically one of the greatest jiu-jitsu practitioners to ever live has his gym 2 miles from my house. Like Lucas Lepre, and he is in class pretty much every time I'm there. He's a 6-time world champ in gi and a 3-time world champ in no gi.
Oh,
so
wow.
he's a 9-time world champ. And basically anybody who kind of knows jiu-jitsu or, the upper belts kind of and follows the sport, like Lucas Lepre is a name that they will recognize.
Oh, cool.
Like he's one of the greats in the jiu-jitsu world. So I feel really lucky that his gym's 2 miles from my house, and I get to be coached by one of the best.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
So that's always a benefit, being able to like have someone or a professor or teacher that really knows their stuff and that has like kind of the pedigree of success, right?
I mean, any black belt that's earn a legitimate black belt, they're gonna, because there's other
doing.
professors there that are just black belts. They haven't won world championships. But like I said earlier, I went with a black belt. He's not a world champ, and he demolishes me. Like I don't stand a chance. And so even brown belts and purple belts can be really, really good professors and teachers. But yeah, like Lucas Lepre is, a LeBron James or a Kevin Durant of the jiu-jitsu world, right? He is truly one of the best. If you were to list the top 5 jiu-jitsu guys right now, he's in the top 5 for sure.
That's super cool.
So
you mentioned earlier that there's certain moves that you can do when you're first into jiu-jitsu, but maybe as a white belt you can't do certain other moves. So like if I was to go to let's say I was going to go to the gym and like they just said wrestle with this guy or roll with this guy, and I just like start doing whatever I think I need to do to make him like not want to wrestle me and tap out or anymore. Like, is that would I run afoul of many things I shouldn't be doing? I mean,
well, typically they don't let you go live and spar your first day in, right? So typically they'll say you have to come to 30 classes or do 30 hours of jiu-jitsu and technique before you can start rolling. So most guys will come to the gym and it takes them, if you come every other day, it'll take you, 2 months to get 30 classes where you can start rolling. And so 30 classes is enough to kind of get a few basic moves in each position that you can at least try and go for. And they do just say like, when in doubt, just tap, like, and they always try to, be careful of the knees and whatnot. And there are some things that, like there are foot locks and straight ankle locks. I haven't even quite learned them yet, and I don't do them. But they say in our gym, they're like, white belts, you're not allowed to do these. And they tell the upper belts, like, when you're going against a white belt, don't put them in a straight ankle lock.
Do you ever watch YouTube videos and you're like, oh, that's a cool move, I want to try that?
Oh, all the time. All the time. I did one the other day, and it's like, I just watched this, because there's different positions that I try to focus on when I go into the gym. Like, I'll go into the gym and say, okay, I want to focus on like this position. And I watched something on YouTube and I tried to replicate it. And most of the time it doesn't work. Like, as is everything, you got to try it multiple times. This time it was actually able to work. But yeah, I'll watch something on YouTube and give it a shot.
And the guy was like, what the heck was that? And you're like, no, that's my secret sauce. You don't know. Yeah, I'm not going to teach you that.
Doesn't Vladimir Putin, doesn't he do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Oh, I don't know.
I think he does.
Sounds like something he'd do.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he does, because I think I've seen him like wrestle. Like, he went to a match one time and he like got on the mat and was showing this guy how to do a move, and it's like,
Well, wrestling is huge in Russia. Uh-huh. Like, Russia is the best wrestling country. They almost win the world championships every year. So it doesn't surprise me to hear that he would be in a grappling sport.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I thought it was kind of interesting. Definitely whoop up on most of our presidents.
Yeah, I'll hold my tongue. So how has, maybe more into the philosophy of this, how has Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu made you a better person?
So I think two things, other than like the health aspects, right? Confidence and humility, I think, which can sometimes be opposites, but humility first, because you just get submitted all the time, right? Like, and you just learn to like be okay with it. So, I'll say if someone's starting out in jiu-jitsu, I would tell them, expect to be submitted all the time, right? Because even as a white belt and you're going up against another white belt, if that white belt's been practicing for 6 months, you're going to struggle. Like, you may go 2-3 months and not get a submission. And there's two ways you can look at it. You can either say, oh, this is terrible. I come in all the time. I get submitted every time. I don't like this. I'm done. Or you can say, man, I got to learn this. These guys are kicking my butts. I've got to learn this. This is awesome. I'm going to keep trying, and I'm going to get better, and I'm going to figure this out. And you do, right? You get better, you learn the moves, and then eventually you start to submit to get submissions and get people. And so just having the attitude of like, you get submitted, it's okay, you move on. It's for fun. And the other one is just having the confidence of and as, even more so as I get further into this sport, because once you get to, white belt and blue belt are kind of the entry level belts. But if you're a purple belt, like, you're pretty dang good at jiu-jitsu. Like, you know what you're doing. White belts, blue belts, it's still learning. But like, if you're a purple belt, you're good. Like,
you could probably submit 98% of the people you come across in public.
Exactly. You can probably submit 99.9% of the world population. Like, if you're a purple belt, you're really good. I've never submitted a purple belt, right? And so I've gone with...
You submitted a blue belt?
I have submitted some blue belts, yeah, but never a purple belt. And I've gone with lots of them. I've gone with purple, I've gone with brown, I've gone with black, and, I've never submitted a purple belt, right? And so if you're a purple belt, so, as I progress in this sport, and I have this confidence of, if I'm ever, because, I never want to be in a situation where my family's at risk and I can't at least protect them in some form or fashion. And so, or myself, right? And so, to have the confidence to know, like, if somebody gets aggressive with me for whatever reason, to have the confidence to know I can handle myself, I think, it is a very practical and good skill that I'm proud to have and continue to grow on.
Yeah, I think those are awesome principles that you can probably apply to your personal creed as well, right?
That's right.
What's next for you? I mean, are you just gonna stick with jiu-jitsu, or are you gonna maybe, as you're building your jiu-jitsu, are you gonna explore? I know some gyms do like, jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, or striking and grappling. What's your interest?
Yeah, so I always want jiu-jitsu to be my main thing. Like, that's always going to be my main thing. But I do want to learn striking. Obviously, striking is an important aspect of any sort of fight or self-defense, right? So I'd like to either do, unfortunately, my gym, Lucas Lapria is a jiu-jitsu master, and so he just does jiu-jitsu. But I would like to do boxing or Muay Thai or something just to get some basic striking, just the fundamentals. It's not something that I think I would go super deep into, but just get the fundamentals of, the head movement, how to throw a technical punch, right? Like, I don't know how to do that. Like, what's the technique for trying throwing a powerful punch? Like, swing my arm. That's all that I know. Ball my hand up,
Swing both arms in the motion like this.
Exactly. Like, how do I swing
Open
without
palms and just fluttering hands? Stop it.
So,
I think that's huge. I think that's smart, and not, or at least, going deep into one, but then having knowledge of other bases as well is definitely smart.
Yeah. So, I want to do jiu-jitsu forever. I want to be a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I kind of envision, obviously time constraints happen, but I kind of envision like doing jiu-jitsu four times a week, and maybe a striking class once a week or once every other week, just again to get the fundamentals down, and to understand the basic concepts.
Are we ever going to see you in the MMA ring, like amateur MMA?
Absolutely not.
I'd go to that. For sure.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. I don't want to get punched in the head. Not for fun, anyways.
You make too much money with your fingers to risk getting them crippled in the ring.
Gotta type the keyboard, man. So I want jiu-jitsu will always be my main thing, but explore other aspects of striking. And when it comes to self-defense, like, the fight always typically starts on your feet, right? And if you can avoid going to the ground, that'd be great. But most of the time it ends up on the ground. And right. So, if I'm on my feet, I can always run away or, create space or create distance. But if I get to a point, if the person tackles me, I have no choice but to engage. And so,
or surprises you, or
exactly. And so, and I just enjoy jiu-jitsu so much. It's always going to be my main thing. It's a practical skill, but it's also a sport. I love the sport of jiu-jitsu as well. And so, it's always going to be my main thing, but, I'd like to incorporate some sort of striking as well. Maybe Muay Thai to incorporate the elbows and the kicks and stuff.
Very cool, man. So this has been great. It's been very interesting to hear about like how you started and where you've come and why you love it so much. And heck, I'm gonna go Google where my closest gym is at and go try it out a couple of times. Maybe I can go during lunch. I can get away from work.
Well, most gyms typically give you one free week, so you can go to 2 or 3 classes, give it a shot. They'll probably lend you a gi and see how you.
That'd be cool. That'd be awesome. I guess we want to ask you your personal creed question, but before that, do you have anything else you'd like to say about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that we didn't ask?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's an awesome sport. If you're thinking about trying it, just give it a shot. A lot of people try it and they get, like I said, they get the jiu-jitsu bug and they get addicted and they love it. It happens at our gym all the time. It happened to me. It's a great sport. It's a practical skill. So give it a shot.
I know that one of the podcasts I listen to sometimes is Jocko Willink.
Yeah. And
he's really into it. And his big thing is like, he's always got a gi on him. And he's like, I'll just go to my car, get my bag, and we can roll. It's like,
exactly.
Anytime, anywhere, anybody says anything, it's like, yeah, let's get into it. He's just like, he's almost like an advocate, right? I mean, he's been doing it for so many years, and he's, black belt and everything else. But
yeah, I listened to him quite a bit, and he loves it, and so Jiu-Jitsu is awesome.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. One of the things we do want to hear from you that we ask every guest is about your personal creed. So a creed is a set of beliefs or principles that guides your actions. This could be a mantra or a quote or just something that you believe strongly. Was wondering if you could share part of your creed with us today.
Yeah.
And with our audience.
Sure. So first and foremost, like, my faith is very important to me. And so my faith in Jesus Christ is the center focus of my life. And part of that belief system is my family, and doing what's best for them. And then as far as jiu-jitsu fits into that is challenging myself. I've listened to this podcast and I've tried to incorporate different things of listening to the different podcasts and like, what can I do to like, and that's kind of what I've taken away from your guys' podcast is what can I do to challenge myself? And so participating in the tournaments, I didn't have to do that. I can just go to jiu-jitsu, do the jiu-jitsu gym and do jiu-jitsu, but I wanted to challenge myself. Right. And so, part of my creed, I think, is just challenging myself each and every day and exploring new things that I haven't considered. Like I said earlier, I wasn't a runner, but by golly, if I'm not going to challenge myself and try to do a half marathon or a full marathon at some point, I'm going to do it just to try to challenge myself. And that's, I think that's one nugget of my creed where jiu-jitsu fits in, is just challenging myself each and every day to new things and new skills and
To be better.
To be better. Yep.
That's awesome, man. And you've actually challenged me and Ethan to something recently.
I did.
And remind me what it's called again. The
Bone frog.
The bone
race.
frog, right?
Yep. It's a bone frog. It's a obstacle course racing. If you've heard of Spartan's, I think, the most reputable company. Then they have like Savage Race or Tough Mudder, and this one we're doing is the Bone Frog. And so we're going to do a 6 mile run with 30 obstacles within the run.
Do you have to do burpees? Because I know that Spartan, if you don't do the obstacle, you have to do like 5 burpees.
So since
burpees.
we're not competing, right, we're just doing it for fun. We're challenging ourselves. That will be optional. I probably will not do the burpees.
6 miles, I mean, for me, right, 6 miles is a long way.
Yeah.
I'll get out there, like, at one point I was running like 3 miles a day, or 3 miles like 3-4 times a week. And when I was done with that 3 miles, I was like, I'm smoked.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to have to train for
Yeah,
this.
I'll have to train as well. I'll have to train as well. So it's not like you can just show up and, I mean, we could walk the whole thing, but we're not challenging ourselves if we do that. Like, so I'm going to train for it a little bit.
I know Ethan's already signed up. I have yet to sign up, but I will. I think it'll be a lot of fun to do it together.
Awesome.
So
thank you for challenging us on that, and thank you for
anybody else in the Charlotte area, if you're interested in joining Team Creed at the Bone Frog on September 11th,
10 a.m. wave. Come on.
10:30.
10:30.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you, speaking with us about your passion. Always love that.
Okay, thanks. Happy to come.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's hopefully we can apply what we learned today and build that creed together.
All right, let's do it.